We've now set up our red callbacks, so now we're going to do the same thing for green and blue as well. So inside of my square screen file, I'm going to go down to my second and third color counters. On both these, I'm going to give them a little bit of extra space by new lining the JSX element, like so. And then inside of both of them, I'm going to define my two prop callbacks on increase and on decrease. When I write these for blue and green, I just need to make sure that I reference the appropriate setter and the appropriate state value. So no longer red, instead this one will be blue, and the third one will be green. Okay, so I'll do on increase. Inside there I'll call set blue, and that'll be blue plus 1. And I'll do on decrease. And this one will be set blue, blue minus 1. And then finally, we will repeat that same process. So I'll do on increase, set green, green plus 1, and on decrease, set green, green minus 1. All right, so that looks pretty good. Now remember, we've already hooked up the use of on increase and on decrease inside of color counter. We only had to do that one time because we only have one color counter component. After we hook up those props one time, we can then reuse that component as many times as we wish. Okay, so now we can test this out once more. I'll save the file. We don't really have any feedback for red, blue, or green right now, so at present, I'm just trying to make sure that I don't see an error message or anything like that. So I should be able to press on increase, decrease, increase, decrease, and increase, decrease, and I don't see any errors inside there whatsoever. Okay, so this is looking pretty good. So now I think we're ready to actually make use of these different state values and apply them to some view to give it some background color that we can control with these different buttons. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my square screen component. I'm going to create a new view element at the very bottom, right above the closing view tag that's already inside there. So I'll place a view element right here. I'm going to give it a style property. We're going to pass it a object directly. So remember, that means we have two sets of curly braces. The outer set means we're about to reference some JavaScript expression. The inner set is creating an actual object literal. Then inside of here, we can set a hard-coded height of about 200. Actually, let's just do something a little bit smaller. We'll do 150. And a width of 150. And then we can create our background color. Now for our background color, we're going to once again use a string template. So that's going to use our backtick characters. Remember, that's not a single quote, it's a backtick character. Then inside of here, we can do RGB. I'll put in my parentheses. And then we need to essentially inject our current value for red, green, and blue inside the string. So we'll do $ curly brace, red, $ curly brace, green, $ curly brace, blue. And notice how I've got the commas in between each of those different values that we're throwing into that string. All right, so that should be it. I think we're now ready to do a final test. So I'll save this file. Notice how when I save it, my code jumps again. That once again is my code reformatter. Everything you see here is 100% equivalent to what I had before. All right, so now I'll go back over, open up my square demo. By default, our starting values for the square are 0, 0, 0, which causes the square to appear as just black. So now I can add in some increase red, and it's going to be really slow because we're changing it by one value at a time. But if I tap this thing a whole bunch, you're going to eventually start to see the thing turn a little bit more red. And yeah, after I click it many, many times, it's definitely turning into the color red right here. Well, testing this out, I'm happy it works, but I'm immediately thinking that we need to make a change to our application. I think that rather than incrementing each of these different color values by 1 every time, maybe we should instead change it by like 10 or 20 or even 15. So I'm going to go around to all my different callbacks here. I could decide to just update all these +1, -1s to like 10 or 15. Or alternatively, we could create a constant value at the top of the file that we could use in place of the 1 right here. And that means if we ever wanted to change how much we adjust these color values by, we would only have to adjust that one constant value. Let's try doing that out. Okay, so at the top of the file, above my component, I'll create a new constant value called, how about color increment? Now you'll notice I'm using all capitals here with an underscore. By convention, anytime we make a true constant value that we want to be some like configuration option inside of a component that is not a prop, we'll usually use this kind of syntax right here. There's absolutely no difference whatsoever in creating this variable. This is just assigned to other engineers that this is some very special variable. Now I'll try starting off with like a starting value of 15. So now I can go back around to each of these ones that I have, delete them, and replace it with color increment. So I'll do that for every value of 1. There we go. So now I'll save this. I'll go to Square Demo again. And now if I tap on increase red, yeah, now it's definitely getting red a lot faster. And I can do a lot of red and blue to turn it purple. And if I add in some green, I'm going to turn white. Yep. I can now decrease some green, decrease blue. Same thing for red. And now I'm getting more towards the green side of things. Okay, so this definitely looks good. Now there's just one last small issue inside of here. Remember, we saw in that console log, if we tap on decrease enough, our color value is going to eventually go negative. Chances are we don't want to have any negative color values inside of our app, so we should probably put in some check somewhere to make sure that if we ever try to decrease a color value beneath 0 or increase it above 255, well, we should probably cap that. Right now, it's clearly not going to raise an error if we go into the negatives in color, but the downside here is that if I tap decrease red many times, I'm probably now like at a red value of negative 200 or something like that, which means I would have to tap increase red many times before I even start to see a change appear. And that's probably not a very good user experience. So let's take another quick pause. In the next video, we'll figure out some way to kind of cap the value of red, blue, and green and make sure there's some minimum value and maximum value as well. So quick pause, we'll take care of that in the next video.